Hello plant people, how are you guys doing today? If you're new around here, my name is Ashley and I'm a soil scientist. On this channel I like to take that science and apply it to all things plants, and in today's video we're going to be talking about how many plants per pot you should plant based on your pot size. So as you guys can see here, I have a beautiful coleus plant that's all nicely potted up, and it's not uncommon to see on a lot of gardening influencer channels, Instagrams, these beautifully potted plants. And if we watch people like Laura from Garden Answers pot up her plants, you can tell there's just an enormous amount of foliage and actual single plants in that pot. And while that may look beautiful, it is not always functional, and I'm here to tell you exactly what the science behind the why is. So if you guys haven't been on this channel long enough, you probably don't know this, but I refer to the pot as part of the soil mixture, and the reason for this is because the pot style, size, and texture is actually what's going to determine what type of soil you should use and how many plants you should plant. So for example, a terracotta pot is very breathable, meaning you're going to want a heavier soil and you're going to want to plant fewer plants because it's going to have a high rate of water utilization. Check out my potting soil resource over on the Gardening in Canada website if you want a little bit more information there. So essentially, when we're looking at potted plants, it's a good idea to determine what our pot looks like and what our soil looks like. If you have a terracotta pot, you're going to want to have less plants. If you have a plastic pot, you can put a few more in. Thing to remember is that plants grow and they will eventually grow into their pot. So if we tend to pot in a mechanism that looks very beautiful at the beginning, we can estimate that we're only going to get approximately 2 to 3 months out of the entire life of that pot. What will tend to happen over time is the plant will aggressively grow, or the plants will aggressively grow to the point that they will kind of form a root ball or mass at the bottom, and they're going to have a very hard time keeping up, and they most likely will set seed unless we can keep on top of them. This is why when we see Martha Stewart, Laura, things of that nature, when we see them pot up their plants, we will very quickly see them change them out in the late summer, and then most likely change them out again in the fall. So if you ever watch their channels, they're constantly revamping and repotting their plants because the plants, they're too heavily planted to be able to survive the entire summer. So if you've got a large budget, or you constantly like changing, like you like to change up the colors, the textures, the look, then that method is ideal for you. But if you're on a budget, or if you're a lazy gardener, then planting with the aspect or the idea that plants are going to grow into the pot is a better way to go about it. So that is the method I personally like to use, mostly because I'm on a budget, but also because I couldn't imagine starting a whole new round of seeds inside in the middle of this summer. I've got more than enough going on with the vegetable gardening side, and I also have another full-time job. So there's that. So here you can see I have some coleus. Now this is very heavily planted with coleus, and this is probably my most heavily overplanted bucket you can see here. So I have a ton of plants in here. I feel like Laura right now in this container, but let's jump over and look at some containers that aren't even close to as nearly planted like this, and look at how many plants I've put into those. So here beside me I have a relatively large container here, and inside of it I have one Wave Petunia. Yes, one Wave Petunia. So if you guys didn't know, Wave Petunias are very low maintenance. We don't have to deadhead these, and they are both a mounding and a trailing plant. So one plant per container is more than enough. I suspect that this plant, by the end of the summer, or I know by the end of the summer, this plant will be about this high, and it will be hanging over the edges. Now, this is probably a 20-inch pot. You could get away with, 2 of the Wave Petunias in here, but one will be more than sufficient. It's going to be a lot easier to keep up with in regards to watering, because in the hot summer days, this is going to survive, whereas the more plants you put in, you may not be able to keep up when August rolls around, and things might start looking a little bit haggard depending on the heat and the region that you're in. So 1 wave petunia per 20 inches of pot, and you can go smaller, but keep in mind you're going to have to water more often. Well, as you can see here, again, I have another pot that has a little bit more going on in it. Not this one. This is my Calathea that's on death's door. Ignore her. This guy here, you can tell he's got 1 begonia and some filler here. So this is in a shaded area. I know my water utilization is under because it is in a shaded area. So I have 3 plants in this pot, despite the fact that it is smaller than the Wave Petunia pot. And so this means I will have better water utilization, which I definitely need because it's in a shady space. I'm thinking that I'll end up with more root rot if I don't pack this a little bit full. So when I have a shady area, I will plant a couple more plants in its place. But again, these plants are going to grow into this. So it's not going to look this barren forever. I give it less than a month. I'll come back and give you guys an updated tour, and this thing will be covered in foliage, whether that be begonias and blooms or these beautiful fuzzy leaves. But again, you guys, you don't have to get fancy, and I generally don't. I'm kind of a 1 plant pot type person, and I find that when I do that, I get the most beauty, because colors, solo style, and their own containers tend to look very, very beautiful. So here again, I've got a beautiful begonia. I have a Gerber daisy given to me by one of my friends. Then I have my single pot petunia back in action. If you can't tell, I'm obsessed with purple petunias, but I digress. So you don't have to get fancy. You just literally color 1 plant, 2 plants. All these plants will take over these pots by the end of the summer, and I've never had anyone ever say anything bad about my lack of plants in my pots, and I've only ever had compliments when people come over for barbecues or whatever the case is. They generally will say, wow, it's beautiful back here. So don't stress it out. 1 plant per pot is good enough. I generally, regardless of the pot size, won't go over 3. I will do 1 thriller and then either 2 fillers, or 1 thriller and 2 spillers. I've never, literally never done a jam-packed pot, mostly because I just simply do not have the time to water that much, and I do not have an automatic watering system. So if you have any tips on what you like to pot, whether that be a thriller, a filler, or a spiller, and how much you like to put in each, then please let me know in the comments down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, tap that subscribe button, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!